Thank you all very much for coming out on this beautiful spring evening. So you didn't know this. This really is a Thanksgiving dinner. But thank you all. Let me thank the kitchen crew. Ladies, thank you very much. And let me thank the VFW here in St. Albans for hosting this. And I want to say a special word of thanks to a very old and dear friend of mine who has been active in veterans issues for probably his whole lifetime. Does everybody know Ed Lavaletta? Ed? There's Ed. And tonight is Ed's birthday. He claims to be 80 years of age. Happy birthday, Ed. What I want to do now, people keep eating, and we'll talk when you eat. I want to thank our panelists for being with us. I'm going to introduce them in a minute. I want to say a little bit about what's going on in the country. Before I go any further, though, there you go. It's falling. It's falling. All right, don't worry about it. We are in a VFW hall, and the people who have utilized this hall have put their lives on the line to defend our country, and we cannot ask any more of any human being than that. So I just want to give my thanks to all of the veterans in this room who have served us so well over the years. And as I have said many times, in this country, we do not give tax breaks to billionaires and then claim we don't have enough money to take care of the men and women who defended this country. So we are going to do, there is, as somebody was the former chairman of the Senate Committee on Veterans Affairs, I'm active on that committee. There are a lot of veterans issues that are out there. Here in Vermont, what we're trying to do is to strengthen the medical center at White River. We're trying to strengthen the 5 community-based outreach clinics we have around the state. We've made some good progress in the last few years, and we're not going to lose that progress. The bottom line is that every veteran in this country is entitled to the best quality health care this system can provide. And we intend to make sure that that happens. And in terms of veterans issues, just an overview, the debate that will be taking place in Washington has to do with the effort of some to try to move toward the privatization of the Veterans Administration. Now, some of you may know, I don't know how much you follow this, there was a guy named Dr. David Shulkin. And Shulkin was head of the VA. He was appointed by Trump as head of the VA. He also served under Obama in another capacity. And Trump fired Shulkin, and the issue was, I believe, that Shulkin was not moving fast enough to privatize the VA. I think the privatization of the VA is a terrible idea. And I'm not going to vote for anybody to be secretary if that person holds that view. What we need to do is strengthen the VA. There are now some 30,000 vacancies in the VA all over this country. We have just put $2 billion into the VA. We fought very hard for that, for infrastructure improvements all over America. But our job is to make sure the VA provides the best quality care with the best staffing that it can, and not to see private corporations move in and take over that very fine institution. So that's what we're working on there. Just a few other words before I get into some of the senior issues. Here is pretty much what the debate that is going on in Washington right now. And I don't mean to be too partisan, but I have to be a little bit partisan. Just a little bit. And that is, there are some people, as you recall last year, who came up with a brilliant idea on health care. And their brilliant idea was that we should throw 30 million people off of the health care that they currently have. Now, I have heard of a lot of stupid ideas in my lifetime, but that may rank up there at the very top of terrible and destructive ideas. Can you imagine somebody who has health care today who is struggling, and to say to that person, we're taking that health care away from you? That is an incredibly dumb idea. What we should be doing, rather than throwing 30 million people off of health care, is do what every other major country on earth does, and that is guarantee health care to all people as a right. Well, Medicare, as you know, is the most popular health care program in America. They do polls, they say, what do you like? And Medicare is always at the top, and the VA is very close behind. What my view is, and the view of a majority of the American people, is that we should expand Medicare to cover every man, woman, and child in this country. All right? Now, I introduced that legislation 3 years ago, and I had 0 co-sponsors. People thought it was too radical an idea. The world is changing. This time when I introduced it, we had 16 co-sponsors. So we're making progress on that issue. Now, President Trump brought forth a budget that was one of the worst budgets I've ever seen. It called for a $1 trillion cut over 10 years to Medicaid. It called for a $500 billion cut to Medicare and cuts to the Social Security disability program. I am happy to tell you that we defeated that budget very quickly. And when you talk about cuts to Medicaid in particular, please understand, Medicaid is not just health care for kids in this state, the Dr. Dinosaur program. It's not just health care for lower income people. It is nursing home care as well. You all know that. That when people go to a nursing home, by and large, most of the funding for that care comes from Medicaid. And if you cut Medicaid by $1 trillion, it means people will not get the nursing home care they need, and it also means that working class and middle class families are going to have to come up with the money to pay for a mom or a dad who has Alzheimer's or some other problem that gets them into a nursing home. So our job is to strengthen Medicare, it is to strengthen Medicaid, and it is to deal with another very important issue, which impacts seniors, but impacts everybody else, and that is that we pay by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, and we have got to end that outrage. I don't know if anybody remembers, I don't know if anyone remembers, but back in, I think it was 1999, when I was in Congress, I organized a bus trip of people from Franklin County to go to Montreal. You remember that? Yeah. All right. And what we found, and I will never forget this, is we took mostly women who were struggling with breast cancer. These are working class women struggling with breast cancer. And when we went to Montreal, they were able to buy the medicine they needed, the exact same medicine they were using in this country. They bought it for 10% of the cost they were paying here. 1/10 of the price. And after that trip, other members of Congress did the same thing. And now it turns out that millions of people all over this country are buying medicine in Canada and in other countries through the internet, or they're going across the border. People should not have to go across the border to get affordable medicine. Our job is to take on the greed of the pharmaceutical industry and lower prices in this country, whether they like it or not.
All right.
Let me tell you how it works. The way it works is that last year, the 5 largest pharmaceutical companies made $50 billion in profit. Got that? 5 companies, $50 billion in profit, while 1 out of 5 Americans are unable to afford the medicine they need. And that is simply not acceptable. So we got several ideas to lower the cost of prescription drugs. We can talk about that later. But that is very, very high up on my agenda. The drug companies are extraordinarily greedy. Right now, they can double their prices, they can triple their prices. There's no law to stop them, and we've got to address that problem. All right, another issue out there. Another issue out there. You're going to see people say, you know, we have a big deficit, and the way to tackle the deficit, this is Paul Ryan. I don't know if you know who Paul Ryan is. Paul is the Speaker of the House. But he has decided that maybe his agenda does not make a lot of sense. We think we could have beaten him in Wisconsin, but anyhow, he saved us the trouble because he is retired. But what Ryan's view was that we should give massive tax breaks to billionaires, and the tax bill that passed several months ago gives 83% of the benefits over a 10-year period to the top 1%. Got that? At a time when we have massive income and wealth inequality, rich are getting richer, 83% of the benefits at the end of 10 years go to the top 1%. And then after they drive up the deficit by over $1 trillion, they come back and they say, well, we've got to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Well, you know what? We ain't going to let that happen. That is a very dumb idea. Right now, you will hear on television some guy saying that Social Security is going broke. Do not believe it. That is a lie. Social Security is not going broke. Social Security has enough funding right now to pay out every nickel owed to every eligible American for the next 16 years. And if we lift the cap on taxable income, we can make Social Security solvent for the next 60 years and increase benefits for lower income people. Right now in Vermont and around this country, and everybody up here on the panel knows this, we have elderly people trying to get by on $12,000, $13,000, $14,000 a year. Social Security. Now you tell me, think about it for a moment. How in God's name can anybody get by on $12,000, $13,000, $14,000 a year? You can't do it. So our job is not to let them cut Social Security. Our job is to expand and improve Social Security benefits and benefits for people with disabilities. And I'm happy to tell you that in the last budget agreement, I worked very hard on a couple of issues. We were able, as I mentioned, to expand VA funding by $2 billion to rebuild VA's infrastructure and increase funding for the Social Security Administration by $480 million. That means that when people call up Social Security if they have a problem, they will get a response much quicker than is currently the case. All right, with that, let me introduce some of our panelists. And what we do is after they speak, we will be happy to take any questions or comments that people have. I think everybody knows Jim Coots. Jim has been running the senior center here in St. Albans for 1 or 2 years, right, Jim? And Jim has, to my mind, done a fantastic job. So Jim, why don't you come on up and say what you'd like to say. Jim Ducey.
On behalf of the board, I want to thank Bertie for coming up and then talking to the seniors on some very important issues. Can everybody hear me?
No, let's make it.
Okay. I can speak louder. On behalf of the board of Franklin County Senior Center, I welcome Bertie to our area. Bernie's been a strong supporter of seniors. I don't think there's any question about that. Around the tables now, I see many of our members, that are here to listen to what Bernie has to say, maybe tell them some of the stories they have. I vividly remember back when Bernie had the trip to Canada for the drugs, and a couple of our members that are still with us were on that trip, Bernie. The senior issues are very, very important issues. We've got some local issues that are extremely important. Property tax being one of the first ones that we have to worry about. Other people that are worried about staying in their home. That's probably the number one thing I've seen among seniors in the last few years. Many of them have outspent their reserves, and they're looking at going into senior housing or moving in with their family or whatever else it may be to exist. That's a crime, really. That's not something that we should have happening. As Bernie said, that $1,300, $1,400 a month or less to live on is not possible in Vermont or anywhere in the country. Anything that you say today, I'm sure Bernie will take heed of. He'll be very active on our part. He's always been active for seniors. He's always been active for the veterans. And I think that if you've got questions, please bring them about. And I hope you all had a good meal.
Thank you very much, Jim, and thanks for what you have done over the years. Kim Fitzgerald works at Cathedral Square, which is one of the largest providers of senior housing in the state. Is that fair? And it's also involved in an interesting healthcare program called the SASH program. So without further ado, please welcome Kim Fitzgerald from Cathedral Square.
Yes, I am the CEO of Cathedral Square, and I have been in affordable housing actually my entire professional career. Prior to Cathedral Square, I've been there about 19 years now. I worked at Vermont Housing Finance Agency. So Cathedral Square owns, manages, and develops affordable housing, and it's mostly for 55 and older in Chittenden and Franklin counties. We had celebrated our 40th anniversary last year, and we have just under 1,000 homes or apartments, and we serve about 1,200 people. However, today we have 800 people on our waiting list waiting to get in. So I say it could take us it took us 40 years to build almost 1,000 homes, that I could build all of that tomorrow and still not really have enough for the need. Our wait lists are typically 3 to 5 years to get into one of our housing settings. In addition, as Bernie mentioned, we have the SASH, Support and Services at Home model. Are any SASH participants here by any chance? Anyone here? No, okay, well maybe next time. Well, that actually is a service to help people stay in their home. And we work with a service coordinator and a wellness nurse, and then we work with the community service agencies to provide the services and the coordination to keep folks in their home, wherever that may be. That may be a private home, it may be an apartment, it may be living with your children. And so that is a very popular program. It's all over the state in every county. We're serving 5,000 SASH participants around the state. We've gotten so much acknowledgement nationally for the program. It's a Medicare program that we are actually now replicating it in other states in the nation. And we're very, very happy that Bernie has actually helped us on all counts, getting tax credit funding to come to the state so we can build more housing. Also subsidy, because even though tax credit housing is less expensive than market rate, it's still really not that affordable for many. So getting subsidy here is very, very important as well. And I'm very happy to learn that HUD 202 funding is coming back around, and we're hoping to get some in the state this year for that as well. And then lastly, I just want to say that we also just opened the first affordable memory care facility in Vermont, and I say that because it has both Medicaid and it also has Section 8 subsidy. In this area, if you needed memory care, you'd be paying $8,000 to $10,000 a month, and nobody I know can afford that. So we were able to purchase the former VNA respite house and turn that into affordable memory care, and we hope to do a lot more of that. So if you have any housing-related questions, I can definitely answer them. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Kim. Michael McLeese is from the community of Vermont Albans Cove, one of the strong senior groups in the state of Vermont. Michael?
Can you all hear me? Can you see me? I'm not very tall. Bernie, thank you very much for inviting us out to the town hall meeting tonight. I'm very pleased to be here. And thank you all for showing up on this Christmas Eve night. And it seems like it anyway. Cove, the community of Vermont elders. Anyone here heard of Cove? A little closer? How's that? Has any of you heard of Cove? Okay, a few of you. Well, Cove has been around since 1981. We're here to provide advocacy and education for older Vermonters. Advocacy in that we have a policy advisory committee and a full-time lobbyist down in Montpelier. We're doing that because we're committed. What's that about? We're here, maybe I'll just talk out loud. No? Okay.
This one works too.
Should I try that one?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
There you
I didn't know it was that powerful. Okay, so we are committed to help you keep the benefits and services you have and keep elder issues in the spotlight of the State House. These are a few of our legislative priorities that we're working on down at the State House. Fuel assistance through the HEAT program, long-term care, transportation, protection of vulnerable adults, senior housing, good nutrition, health care reform, and lastly, support for low and moderate income older adults. So the educational component of what we do is through two programs. One is the SMP program. That's the one that I work in, Senior Medicare Patrol. There is a Senior Medicare Patrol in all 50 states in the U.S. and 4 of our protectorates. Here in Vermont, we're staffed by 3 outreach volunteer coordinators, of which I'm one, here in the northern part of the state. And by the way, I want to ask in the room tonight, do any of you have any idea of how much money is stolen from the Medicare system each year? And I mean nationally, not just Vermont. Can somebody shout out a number? $1 billion. $1 million? Who said $1 billion? 61, close. It's unbelievable, but it's at least 90 billion to possibly up to 150 billion dollars. When I found that out, my eye teeth fell out. And can you imagine what we could do with our Medicare healthcare system if we could keep that money for ourselves, and not to mention solvency for the program? That's quite a lot of money. So that's what we're trying to do with the SMP program, is to work with you on how not to be frauded, how not to have your money stolen and our Medicare system looted. The Vermont SMP program offers a signature presentation series. We try to meet with folks every month or every 2 months. We want to build a relationship. We want to get to know you, and we want to help you to avoid being frauded. So we also have some fun. Have any of you heard of Savvy Senior skits? Yeah, well, Savvy Seniors, it's a troupe of professional actors through the Lyric Theater troupe down in Burlington. And they go around the state with us, and they do skits on what's out there in terms of frauds and scams. And I hate to tell you, but when they're not available, you get me and some of my colleagues, and they don't think that we're so good, but I disagree with them. And actually, we're thinking about having Bernie do a skit with us tonight, but we thought better of that after all. So the last thing that we do, I'm just about finished here, the other program is the Building Bridges program. And it's an arm of the SMP in that we also do fraud education, but it's general fraud, not just on Medicare. So if you have any questions after the program, come and see me if you want to sign up for a presentation or to have us do Savvy Seniors. Let's get in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
What Michael is talking about in terms of fraud, it's a big deal. I will never forget, some years ago, a woman came up to me and she said her mother had basically turned over her entire life savings to some fraudulent group who called her on the telephone, and she probably had Alzheimer's, was not aware of what she was doing, but ended up almost losing all of her life savings. It is unbelievable that you would have people out there. Can you imagine people who are preying on senior citizens, trying to steal their life savings? But that exists, and that's what Michael and his group are trying to prevent. Okay, what I would like to do now is just open it up for discussion on any issue that's on your mind, senior issue or anything else. And also, what I would like is if people wanted to just tell us what goes on in the community. Often we really do not hear about what it's like to live on 12 or 13,000 a year, what it's like not to be able to afford the medicine you need. This morning, we were in Montpelier, and a woman with rheumatoid arthritis who pays a whole lot of money for medicine was just talking about the stress that she is under trying to figure out how she can pay for the medicine that she needs. And that goes on all over the country. So anything on your mind, we'd love to hear from you. Okay, yeah.
Hi, Bernie. Hey, Peggy. Why is it when we get a raise, and I'm putting that in quotes,
Yes.
we never see it? It's last 2 years it's gone into Medicare.
Right.
And then before that, we didn't get any. How come we don't get a bigger raise?
All right,
where
good
we
question.
get our paycheck?
Okay. Here is the answer. The cost of the COLA that you're supposed to get every year is supposed to be a reflection of inflation, right? In other words, if you are spending, theoretically, if you are spending 5% more in 2018 than you spent in 2017, you should get a 5% increase in your COLA, right? That is the theory. Now, let me tell you how it works. The way it works, and we are working on this issue, is how do you determine inflation for a senior citizen? How much more are you spending this year than you spent last year? The problem is the way that we do it now is seniors are tied in to the general population. So if some of you are out going and buying a flat screen TV, the cost is less this year than last year. If you're buying computers, cost is less this year than last year. Most of you are not buying flat screen TVs or computers. What you're buying are prescription drugs and health care whose costs are going up much higher than inflation. Follow what I'm saying? All right, so what we are trying to do is coming up with what we call a segregated senior index to look at what seniors are really spending their money on, which is often healthcare related, which is often going up a lot faster than general inflation. Okay, so if a 20-year-old kid buys an electronics gadget and prices have gone down, that really should not impact the COLA for seniors who are buying prescription drugs. All right, that's the issue there. Okay, good question. Sir?
My comment deals more with Medicare, Medicaid. Oh, this is great. I recently went through 20 sessions of radiation for cancer at a cost of $137 a piece. Medicare paid $38.01 a piece. Where's the fairness? The other thing, on the plus side, though, I do want to say, our VA in Burlington, Vermont, I've had a lot of experience with them, and I find this particular VA program is really good. They've been
Good. Okay, let me just respond to both. We have, it's not so new now, it's about 5 years old. We used to be out in 40th and Allen, you remember that? And they overgrew that. We got a brand new, not brand new, but it's 5-year-old facility in Burlington. We've also, over the years, built a new CBOC up in Newport and one down in Brattleboro. So we're making progress in making health care accessible to veterans of the state. In terms of Medicare, here is the issue. When you hear people talking about cuts in Medicare, what it means is that you will have to pay more if the government is not paying on their side. So every cut is going to be matched by higher co-payments or deductibles or something like that. The other problem, if I can say, with Medicare, does Medicare cover dental care? Does Medicare cover eye care? No. All right. Those are important issues. Hearing as well. So I wanted to tell you that the Medicare for All bill that I introduced, which now has 16 co-sponsors, does cover dental and eye care and audio care as well. All right? And let me just say something else out there. Very often I am criticized. And people, very often, every day I am criticized. And people say, well, Bernie, you know, it's a great idea. You want to help the seniors, and you want to expand Medicare and make sure that their eyes and their ears and their teeth are covered. Where are you going to get the money? Because that's not free. That's an expensive proposition. And the answer is that we do not give $1 trillion in tax breaks to the top 1%. We use that to help seniors and veterans. All right? We are, and it's important for me, I say this over and over again, and I want everybody to understand it. You are not living in a poor country. You are living in the richest country in the history of the world. And the problem is most people don't know that because almost all of the new income and wealth is going to the 1%. And we got to try to change that. If you go to Europe, if you go to Scandinavia, healthcare is available to all people as a right. You go to Germany, college education is free to all of their kids. Most of those countries have retirement programs that are much stronger than we have here in the United States. So don't believe anybody who tells you we got to cut this, we got to cut that, we got to cut that. Those are the same people who talk about tax breaks for billionaires and large corporations. We got to get our priorities right. And a great nation is not determined by how many tax breaks you give to the rich. It is determined by how well you take care of the most vulnerable people in our society. That should be our goal. Okay, other questions or comments? All right, we'll get it right. Here it is. Sound it better. Yeah, hold that mic close to your mouth there. You can hold it yourself, yeah.
Hi, Bernie.
Hi. Just give the mic and hold it close.
It's not.
It is on. Give it.
Out here, yes. It should be turned up.
Just let him hold it close to his mouth. Give it to him. There you go. Okay.
Bernie, have you or any of the leaders in Congress heard anything about what's going to happen in Syria?
Not any more than I have read it. So let me be very clear on that issue. The Constitution of the United States is very clear. And where it is clear under Article 1, Section 8, is that it is the Congress of the United States that declares war, not the President. Now, unfortunately, over the years, under Democratic presidents and Republican presidents, Trump is not the first, presidents have assumed that authority. I think that's wrong. So my concern is that after 17 years in Iraq, after, 15 years in Iraq and 17 years in Afghanistan, the last thing that I want to see is our country get involved in a never-ending war in the Middle East. And that war could go on. You got the Sunnis there in Saudi Arabia, and you got the Shias in Iran, and they hate each other. They've been hating each other forever. I do not want to get our armed forces stuck in the middle of that for the next 30 years. Okay, there's a gentleman right behind you. Okay, hold the mic and just hold it close to your mouth.
It's not a question, I want to make a statement. All of this doesn't mean anything if you don't show up on election day.
All right. That is a very important point, and I don't care what your political point of view is. People who built this building, the VFW and the other veterans organizations, they fought, and some of them never came home fighting for American democracy. And I really do get angry when you have millions of people who don't vote, who don't know what's going on. That is an insult to men and women who fought and died to defend this country. We have a responsibility to participate in our democracy. And what I don't want to see, and I'm seeing this right now in this country, as a result, as some of you know, of this Supreme Court decision on Citizens United. You know what that decision was? That was a Supreme Court decision, a 5-4 decision, that said that billionaires could spend as much money as they wanted in an election. So you got a handful of billionaires in this election who will be spending hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to elect candidates to protect the wealthy and the powerful. And I really resent that. And I want to overturn that Supreme Court decision. But most importantly, your point is right. It's not good enough to complain and moan and groan. People have got to get involved in the process. The truth is, the American people on issue after issue hold views that are very, very different than what Congress is doing. And our job is to elect people to Congress who are going to stand up with working people and for working people, and not just a handful of billionaires. That's the issue to me. Okay, ma'am, right here. Just stand up and be loud.
Senator, my question has to do with the taxation in Vermont of Social Security income.
Good.
Everyone, my question is about the taxing of Social Security income. I'm a relatively new Vermonter, moved here from New York 4 years ago. Everyone I know said, what do you go to Vermont for? Don't you know they tax Social Security?
Good.
On a federal level, what can we expect to see? Thank you.
As I understand it, Vermont is one of 4 states, only 4 states in the country that does it.
That's true.
I think people here will tell me right now that the legislature is working on that issue. And we hope very much the legislature does the right thing. We should not be taxing Social Security income, in my view.
I'm curious to know what senators and representatives in Washington have for health care and what they pay for it.
Well, I'm gonna disappoint you by telling you it ain't so good. I have Blue Cross, my family has Blue Cross Blue Shield. What we have is the same thing, choices that every federal employee has. The federal employment, whatever it is. And you got a choice of many, many programs, and depending on your family status, you buy into it. And we buy into it. We have, my wife and I get what we get, and we pay the same thing as other federal employees.
Thank you.
Hi, yeah. Here you go.
Thank you for coming here today. I appreciate it. I'm a 100% disabled Marine veteran from Vietnam. Yeah. This is a Medicare VA. I have a problem between the two. I'm stuck in the middle. I have to have procedures done to me that the VA wants me to go to River Forward.
What's your what?
Go to White River for procedures. I can't have them done here locally.
Right.
In Burlington because there's a clinic in Burlington that's closer.
Yeah.
But the clinic is only there to draw blood and talk to you. They don't do these procedures. I also want to say this, is that I fought for 10 months to get things done the way they should be. And the VA and Veterans Choice said, no, we can't do it, no, we're not going to do it. But I'm here to tell you, I talked to Liz in your office, and inside of 3 weeks, it was a done deal. Thank you very much for your help.
Thank you very much for your service. And let me just say this, and thank you for reminding me. We have 5 people in Burlington who do casework. That means when you call up and say, I got a problem with the VA, or I got a problem with Social Security, they go to work. And they can't solve every problem. Sometimes the problems are not solvable. But they try very hard, and I have great confidence in Liz and the other people that we have. So if anybody here has a problem, okay, before we, Haley and David, raise your hands. Okay. They're going to give out literature. If you have a particular problem that you would like us to work on, go to these guys, give them your phone number, and somebody will call you up within the week, okay? If you know of anybody who can use our services, don't hesitate to take advantage. That's why we're there. Yes, sir.
Rudy, my question has to do with phone scams. I keep getting these annoying calls from phone scammers. So the thing that I really hate most is I get calls from my caller ID that says it's a local number, Northwestern Medical Center. I answer the phone and then I get this garbage. What can we do about it?
That is a...
I contacted FCC twice, and they're still calling.
All right. That is a great question, and my wife agrees with you absolutely. You know, we're sitting home and the telephone rings. And I say, aren't you going to answer the telephone? It says, no, it's just a garbage call. And we get them all the time as well. Thank you for reminding me. That is it. Other people have that problem? Yeah.
Local number.
Okay, come on.
Get a whistle.
So we're having a lot of that in Vermont, and as last fall over in the St. Johnsbury area, these people, these groups, and they may be in the United States and they may not be. They might be in Vietnam or India. We don't know. The problem is, the gentleman that asked that, is today it is so easy to buy phone numbers or get them for free. Google, for instance, you can get a Google phone number that's in the 802 area code, but not only that, you can get it specific to your town. So there's not much that we can do right now, but to be informed, you know, that your hospital is not going to do that. But that's what happened in St. Johnsbury last fall. They were on the caller ID, it showed the St. Johnsbury Hospital. And they make it a little amount so it's believable. They say, well, this is the billing department, you owe $148. That's been happening, that's very scary. So just be aware, you know, have us come and give a presentation and we'll talk about all that.
Which raises another question. Some of you may have paid attention to Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook testifying in Congress last week. This kind of relates. Your point is a very good point about these nuisance calls that are trying to rip people off. But we got another question, another issue that's out there that is just incredible. I don't want to break the bad news to you, but I suspect you already know it, that for those of you who use the internet, those of you who use Facebook, a lot of the more information about your lives than you would believe is in the hands of somebody else. And they use that information to sell you products, all right? So they know what products you buy, they know where you go to the doctor, they know what books you read, they know what clothing you purchase, etc., etc. It is clear that digital technology has outpaced public policy in terms of privacy. So you got people out there who know more about you than you know about yourself. You know, and then this ties in, you know, to the business of Russia trying to influence the elections. Because they know, they don't just send out ads, and it's not just Russia. You know, people in this country do it. They don't just send out ads to anybody. They know who you are. They know a lot about your views. They know the car that you are driving. So they can tailor that ad to you. So this is a real concern. The issue of privacy, the right to live your life as you want within the law without having somebody else knowing so much about you. big issue out there that we got to work on. All right, other thoughts or questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name is Bob Roberts. I live down in the Bay, and I met you when the German ambassador was here
Good.
a while ago. My question is what is going to be done about actually cleaning up the Bay, not just studying it?
I can't give you a specific area about the Bay, but I can tell you that in the recent appropriations bill, Vermont will see a lot of money for the cleanup of Lake Champlain in general. Now, I can't tell you how much of that will end up at the Bay, but there was a pretty good appropriations to help Lake Champlain in general. Okay, other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Bernie, I just want to say that, for one thing, I've been following your career since you were voted mayor of Burlington and all through the years, and I just think you're wonderful, and I just love you. And I'm so glad that you're in Washington, because I have never in my life, and I've been, been a few presidents have gone by, and I've never in my life been terrified of a president and of any of the crazy things he might do. And I wish I could hear more from you about it, because you're a sane voice from down there. So anyway, I just need to say that I have never been in my whole life terrified of the President of the United States. I need to say that. Thanks.
Let me just say this, and I'm sure that within this room there are people who have different political points of view, and that's called democracy, and that's fine. This is what worries me about Trump. It is not just his views on the issues, tax breaks for billionaires and throwing millions of people off of healthcare. Needless to say, I strongly disagree with that. Or efforts to privatize the VA, and I strongly disagree with that. But I'll tell you what he is doing that no president that I have ever seen is doing. Some of you remember, after the tragedy of 9/11, President Bush, who is a conservative Republican, you know what he did a few days later? He went to a mosque. He went to a mosque to say, we were attacked by terrorists, by awful people, but you can't blame all Muslims for that attack. Individuals did that. It was a brave act. What Trump is doing, which really upsets me very much, for his own political gain, he is trying to divide this country up. He's trying to turn people who were born in this country against immigrants. He's trying to turn us against people whose sexual persuasion may be different than ours. People whose religion may be different than ours. And that really is an awful thing for a president to be doing. What a president is supposed to be doing, and they all have done this, conservatives or progressives, whatever they may be, is to understand that my father came to this country from Poland at the age of 17 without a nickel in his pocket. I'm a first-generation American, okay? And all of you have similar type stories. And that's what America has been about. And forever, we have struggled against discrimination. Discrimination against women. Discrimination against African Americans. Discrimination against immigrants. And the effort has finally been to bring people together. To judge people not by the color of their skin or their religion, or where they came from, but who they are as a human being. If we went around this room, I bet you we would have people coming from 50 different countries in America. And the beauty, to America. And the beauty of this country is we have absorbed and welcomed those people. And we live together. And the idea that we have a president trying to divide us up bothers me. And I see also authoritarian tendencies in him. All right, look, I'm a politician. I have disagreements with the media, except for Michelle. She's great. But look, that's natural. You know, people write stories, you disagree. But you never had a president who's telling the American people, don't believe anything in the St. Albans Messenger. It's all fake news. It's all a lie. And what that does is undermine American democracy. You don't have presidents attacking the judiciary, which is an independent part of the United States government. So all of those things worry me very much, and we're doing our best. And the last good news is, I told you, he brought forth the budget. That budget was put in the garbage can, and we wrote a very, very different budget that was actually a halfway decent budget. So, okay, other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I know we spoke briefly before.
Yeah. If you grab the mic there.
Oh, I don't need it, trust me, I have a big mic. I would like to know if, Senator Sanders, you could possibly look into disability for people who really, really need it.
Yes.
For one, I have never in my life been through such a rigmarole in my life trying to get disability from my husband, who is disabled, has 2 doctors stating he's disabled. He's been let down by the medical field. He's been let down by attorneys. You're our last hope.
Well, we're going to do our best. I know that you've contacted our office.
Yes, I have.
Okay.
But the thing I have is right now, where you're talking about people who can't afford medical help and stuff like that, you're absolutely right. Because technically, my husband is at home, in a house, living in 4 walls, can't get medical help. He needs medical help. They want to put him in the hospital, can't afford it. I know it's not our only story. There's millions of people.
There are millions of people in
But
that.
you need to also look into disability because they lose your paperwork. They
Okay.
say
Now, I want to say we have looked into it.
Okay.
And what we have done just 3 weeks ago, we passed legislation, and I pushed this issue. $480 million more for the Social Security Administration so they would be able to hire people and get the technology they need to deal with claims in a proper manner. Okay? That's exactly what we did.
That's excellent, because the guy told me, he says, I can't find your file. Went down there, sitting right there on his desk. I said,
Okay. Well, we're going to work on that. Okay. Other questions? Hand way back there, sir. Yeah. Be loud, I can't hear you.
Okay, drawing on some of the things you said earlier. First of all, I would like to see you sponsor a constitutional amendment in which, in a presidential election, if the person who wins the majority popular vote and yet loses the electoral vote, does not become president, that the amendment would say if there is a significant disparity in the popular vote and the loser becomes president, but to make it different so that the popular vote will override the electoral vote.
Okay.
Secondly, and by the way, I emailed to Greta, because I was trying to get the attention of Senator Collins of Maine before the tax bill. I think you should read what I sent to Greta, your office, on that, because I forwarded 2 emails to Senator Collins to her. I'd love to see that in the reading the whole of Congress. Now, when Equifax came out, I emailed the governor's office. I said, you should hold a press conference on Monday telling exactly what you plan to do as far as protecting Vermonters from the credit test identity there. No response from the governor's office there. Now, I just had my laptop taken care of, and I told Greta this. I said, can you imagine the headlines? Senator Sanders' home has been broken into more than 1,500 times because I had 1,500 malware and spyware on my laptop there. The IT guy said that Equifax has a procedure to get the people to know exactly who has been compromised, and yet they won't publicize it. And I think if you put a letterhead to them demanding that Vermonters get to know who's who in that regard.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's a very good point. Other questions or comments? Yes, sir. Man in the green shirt back there, right there. Back there.
Can you hear me?
Nope, use the mic.
All right. I'm surprised. My wife and I just moved here in mid-November. I've been looking for work. I'm 65. And I've been an educator for 42 years. And I keep hearing about Vermont needs teachers and needs principals. And I have the certification from your state and a few other states, but yet I'm not getting any interviews. And I was just wondering, is that because I'm from out of state and not a true Vermont guy? I can't get an address until I get a job. In order to get a bank account, in order to rent a place, become a Vermonter. I feel like I'm in another country.
We're not that bad.
No. Hear me out. The reason why we moved here is because I was kind of a whistleblower for the state of Minnesota Department of Corrections. We had several suicides in one of the facilities I worked at. I simply asked the supervisor, why did we wait till the sixth suicide to bring help?
All right, let me say this, sir. All right, what I'd like to do, if there's a way we could help you, talk to my staff, okay?
I did, but they gave me where to get my licensure and all. I know all that stuff.
All right.
Exactly.
I just need a job. Anybody want to hire an old guy? I'm serious. I'll do anything. I do.
Okay, other questions, comments? Yes, sir, right here. You got a mic?
I can wait for one.
Okay.
Thank you. I had to shoot my hand up when I just heard this last story. I've been an educator for over 30 years. I was a professor for 10 years before I moved to Vermont 3.5 years ago. I can tell you that in the first 2.5 years I lived here, I swear to God on my life, over 700 job applications. I'm working in a grocery store right now. I have multiple graduate degrees. My experience has been that the economy here is so tough that people have their fingers dug into academia because their life does depend on it. An opening comes up, you know, do you have a nephew, et cetera, that kind of thing. Look, I help write textbooks. I'm a serial conference presenter. You know, I'm the kind of professor that most colleges would want to hire. But here's the thing. I don't know anybody. This is the kind of dynamic where you have to know somebody kind of thing. I just got here.
Okay, well, let's see if we can work together.
Well, the point is, and here's the thing I was first thinking about sharing. I wish there was some kind of a metric to improve the economy here in Vermont so that, you know, we don't have to sacrifice the environment or the magnificence of the state, et cetera. You know, there's got to be a way to improve the economy.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Other questions or comments? I see a hand right here, sir. Yeah.
To follow up on the gentleman from a little while ago, what traction, if any, is there to overturning the electoral college? Twice in the last 20 years, we've had a president elected by popular vote lose the electoral college.
I think there is. I mean, it becomes complicated because you got an electoral college. And you have a system as a result of the compromise when they wrote the Constitution that gives Vermont 2 United States Senators and California 2 United States Senators. Kind of works well for Vermont. California doesn't think it's such a good idea. But they're always, and people are exploring it. The bottom line is, it's a little bit silly. Clinton got 3 million votes more than Trump did, and Trump is the president. And that's, yeah.
What was the reason?
Hi, I'm really thankful for you to be here and talk to me about this because I watched Mark Zuckerberg get grilled by congressmen. And what I saw was a young man who created a business in America and became very, very successful. And I watched him be grilled by congressmen who spent, in 2014, they built a Utah data collection for NSA. They spent $12 billion. They're spying on Americans more than Mark Zuckerberg's failings of his business. And they're all standing there pompously grilling this man. And I'm wondering, when are we going to save our Constitution? Because it seems like every day there's another chip against another.
That's a very good point. And your point is well taken. I think, as you may know, I voted against the USA Patriot Act. And I have real concerns about government accumulation of information. But it's not just the government. It is both the government and the corporate world. Here's the problem. What the young people in my office tell me, I have a bunch of young people, and they do social media, they do a great job. And they say, you know, Senator, young people assume that they're not going to have any privacy. They assume when they go to a web page or they do emails or social media, somebody will have that information. And by and large, they don't care anymore. So that worries me very much. I have talked to people, talk about the NSA, talk to people and say, I don't really care if the government is listening to my telephone conversation. I'm not a terrorist. I don't have anything to hide. I think that's a bad approach. You know? Yes, we're not terrorists, but we have a right to privacy. And that right is being attacked by government, it's being attacked by corporate America. It is an issue that we have got to address, in my view, both government and the private sector. Okay, yes, ma'am. You got a mic there, ma'am.
I have a comment, actually, and I think it's important because many things I've heard talked about today, including the last few things, electoral college and that kind of thing. We have the power. Those of us American citizens have the power, and we're given that power by the Constitution. And if we went and voted and listened to the candidates, we could use that power. Because the power is still ours. Rather, Congress would like us to believe that it is not. It is.
That's right. That's a very... You know, it's an amazing thing. There's a poll that came out the other day, last week. And they asked people around the country, do you like your senator, do you don't like your senator? What really interested me is then they say, do you know who your senator is? No, it's true. There are states in this country, not Vermont, there are states in this country with 25, actually the senator from Michigan, it's a nice guy, his name's Gary Peters. 35% of the people in the state of Michigan did not know who he was. So how can you have a vibrant democracy when people don't even know who their senator is? You like him, you dislike him, fine, but you don't even know who he is. Is he a Republican? Is he a Democrat? Is he an independent? What is he? What is she? You don't know. You have, most people in this country do not know the name of the United States congressperson. All right? That has got to change. That really has got to change. So we have got to revitalize American democracy. When some of us were kids, there were courses on civics. Do you remember that? Yep. Where they taught you about the Constitution. Yes. Where they taught you about what it meant to be an American citizen. What your responsibilities were. The difference between local government, state government, federal government. We got to start rethinking that. We got to start educating the young people. And we got to get those young people involved in the political process. Okay, very good point. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, right here, please. Yeah.
Hi, Senator Sanders. Earlier we were talking about what older people in the state of Vermont spend their money on.
Yes.
My income is less than $1,000 a month in Social Security and what little benefit I get from retirement, and I was a respiratory therapist, a professional for 20 years of my life. I cannot afford to buy food in the state of Vermont. The price has gotten so high that I go to the grocery store and my stomach is in knots. I volunteer at the Williston Food Show, and very often there is not a decent supply of food for the people of Williston to eat. There are canned goods, there are non-perishables, there is white carbs, cereal, boxed cereal, canned things that have very little nutritional value, snacks, bakery items that have been left open to go bad. Is there any way that the people of Vermont can come together and try to improve the situation? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. The answer is absolutely. I mean, and it's not just a state issue, it's a federal issue as well. And I don't want to spend much time telling you that there are people who want to cut back on federal aid for nutrition, make a bad situation worse. But to answer your question, yes, we should make sure that the emergency food shelves have good quality food and have ample amounts. I don't know if you noticed, I don't know what the story is in Williston, but I have been around this state and seen many people who are going into emergency food shelves who are working. All right? So people think, oh, well, somebody's unemployed or somebody's on welfare. These are people who are working, but if you have a couple of kids and you're making $11 an hour, you know what? You're not earning enough money to feed your family. All right? So thank you for that point, and it is something we will look into. Yes, sir. Right. Yeah. Yes.
I'm again, Bob Roberts.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bob. Let me get to somebody who hasn't asked the first question. I'll get back to you later. Yeah. Okay. Yes, sir.
Hi, Bernie. How you doing?
Good.
I'm a veteran of the United States of America, and this is a VFW. Has there any questions been asked about what's going on with veterans in this post so far?
In this, well, we have
Today.
We have discussed veterans issues.
Has there been any discussion about veterans in this post today?
He spoke at the beginning.
Okay, thank you.
No, we started off with the discussion
Okay,
of veterans.
so here's my first question. Should any veteran have to pay for their military service and give it back to the government for that time to count? Have you ever heard of the military buyback program? Have you ever heard of that?
No.
You never have. You might have your staffers look into it. Might want to do that. Because I paid $11,000 for 18 years. Doesn't even count.
All right, will you do me a
military for any kind of retirement.
Okay, do this.
For any kind of retirement.
See the lady right next to you? That woman in the red?
Hi.
All right, give her your name.
I've got over 35 years of government service, and almost 19 doesn't even count.
Okay, let us look into that. Will you give her your name? Sure. And your phone number. We'll get back to you. Okay, let me get to people who haven't asked the first question. Anybody who hasn't asked the first question? Yes, ma'am.
This actually isn't a question. The gentleman who wanted information about the state of the lake, you're over in that section somewhere. Are you still here? Can you hear me? Okay. The group that you want to contact is the Friends of Northern Lake Champlain.
I haven't done that.
Okay, good, because they're the ones, Dr. Kent Henderson, who lives in Georgia.
What do they have to show for their efforts so far?
Well, you need to contact them. I can't speak to that. I just know that they've been instrumental in passing the money that you referenced regarding Vermont. So anyway, yeah, we need to say we're late.
Okay, thank you
for coming.
Thank you. Okay, other questions for people who haven't asked? It's a woman right over there. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Hold that mic close to your mouth.
Oh, you can hold it. But
She can hold it herself. Just hold it close to your mouth.
Close to my mouth, okay. Well, there are so many problems in this country, but there are moral problems. For instance, the drug problem. Right here in St. Albans, the drugs are being used and sold and so forth. And people say, well, why does that bother you? It's everywhere, so just accept it. But why? There was one city that I heard of where they said, if you're doing drugs, get help. If you're selling drugs, get out. If you're thinking of doing either one, get smart. And they cut it down quite a bit. But here it's just being overlooked and accepted and nothing's being done about it. Another point, I've got a couple if you don't mind. Okay. Where they say gun control and all this, but in the schools where people are killing each other and themselves besides, you think back to when prayer and Bible was accepted in the school and then God was kicked out. And if you kick God out of the schools, the devil's going to come in. And when you get to the root of the problem, that's where it is. This country has got to repent and get back to God, get back to basics, even the Constitution. And then the other thing is about the Social Security. I was given, now it's a petition to give to you, that says that our Social Security is being given to the Mexicans. to help Mexico accept the United States or something back and forth like that?
Oh, God.
It's not true?
No,
Oh,
of course it's
because
not
they
true.
said we should.
I mean, one of the things, when we talk about what's going on, especially with the, no, the last point is absolutely untrue. In terms of opioids, let me just say this. We have a very serious problem. You're right. In this state, it's worse in New Hampshire, worse in West Virginia, but we have a very serious problem. The last appropriations bill that was passed will put billions of dollars into treatment and prevention, and I hope that that will help. But we have to ask a very hard question, and why is it that so many people drift into these addictive opioids? And I'm not sure that I know the answer, but it is a very serious problem that has to be addressed. We lose a lot of people from overdoses. I think your local police department, I talked to your chief here, he will tell you that. So it's an issue we have got to aggressively address. Yes, sir.
Accessibility.
Accessibility to the drugs? Yeah. Okay.
Accessibility. There's too many doctors that are prescribing it for people that don't really need it.
All right, what the gentleman is saying, that he thinks one of the causes of the problems is there are too many doctors who are prescribing too many opioids. And I think there is truth to that. Amazingly enough, and it's very interesting, the state of Kentucky, which was hit very, very hard by opioids, they now, as I recall, have a law that when somebody gets their first opiates, the doctor can only prescribe a limited amount by state law. And actually, there's federal legislation that may look like that. But that is, I think what is clear is that when the drug companies made these opioids, they did not tell doctors how addictive they were. And people started taking them, and they could not get rid of them. David, you told me a story about when you went to the dentist, right? What was, let's tell them the story.
I wanted to just not even pull a tooth, and I walked away with 30 opioids. Didn't take a single one.
But he went to the dentist to get a tooth pulled, and he walked away with 30 opioids. And that's, I think, your point, right? That's what's going on. And you know, I think here in Vermont and around the country, people are working hard to try to change that. Yeah, ma'am? Yes?
Yes, good evening, Senator. I am a registered nurse, or I was, I'm retired now, for well over 40 years. I did the training in Montreal, Canada. So I have been exposed to both Canada and United States. As everybody knows, we do have the medical, free medical access. And I firmly believe in this wonderful country that I'm going to die in, I'm sure. I don't want to go back and be a Canadian again, even though I loved it up there. We need medical access for everyone. We also need education in the university for everyone. This is our only way out of poverty and difficulty in life. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. And I agree with you absolutely. Just think for a moment, you know, every year, media does polling around the world, and they try to determine who are the quote-unquote happiest countries on earth. Now that's a very hard thing to determine. Your happiness may be different than mine. How do you do it? But what they often find is the countries that are happier are those countries which have less stress. Think about what America would be like if nobody in this room had to worry about the cost of health care. If you did not have to worry about whether you could afford prescription drugs. This morning in Montpelier, we had a meeting like this, and a woman who has rheumatoid arthritis was talking about the stress she goes through all of the time, wondering whether she can afford the very expensive medicine that she needs. Stress is a very bad thing. Now, if you get an illness, what you should be focusing on is how you deal with that illness. You know, if you get cancer, you have a heart disease, that's enough to deal with, isn't it? How do I get better? You should not have to worry about what the medical bill will mean to your family. And they have achieved that in Canada, and they have achieved that in virtually every other major country, and we're fighting hard to make that true for the United States. Okay, maybe a couple more questions, ma'am.
More or less, I want to make an announcement. Right after the election, I called your office and I said, being devastated by the election, I said, how can I help? And your office referred me to Rights and Democracy. And I just wanted to say that myself and another woman are working with Emma Schoenberg to try to get a chapter established up here in Franklin County. We haven't made an announcement as to our second meeting, but we will. It'll be either on Front Porch Forum and or in the Messenger. So I just wanted to let people know that people seem to want to be active, that there is a group that's forming, and partially in response to the midterm elections, we want to get going. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Rights and Democracy does an excellent job. Okay, sir, right there. Yep. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Senator. You alluded to it earlier when you said $11 an hour. I think it's time we address the minimum wage. And I had an idea that when we do, this is a good time to do it because the economy's good and most people are paying well above the minimum wage right now, so there'd be less repercussion. But I had an idea that to increase the value of education, that you make a two-tiered minimum wage. You have a separate minimum wage for those without a high school diploma. And that way we could still employ the high school kids. And it takes away that argument that we'd outprice them in the job market. Maybe $1 or $2, $1 or $2 an hour difference would be good. Maybe hold them at the present one as you raise the other one up. Would be a painless way to do it.
Okay. I think gentleman right here, right at the end. I think we'll take maybe one or two, because I don't know what the weather is out there, but I don't want people, is it bad? All right, so we should get people out of here without, yeah, stand up, yeah.
My name is Carl Abbott. I'm a veteran of the Vietnam War. I'm a wounded veteran. And as you say, I've been through strong. But what I want to know is when I'm gone, who's going to take care of my wife? Did she get any of my benefits? She sacrificed a lot when I was gone. I've been married 60 years to her. And my husband raised my 3 sons.
All right, that is a very important question. We make sure we have the gentleman's name. All right, we will call you back this week.
It's in the office.
Okay, well, all right, well, let me make sure we get you again. One of the things that we are trying to do, and this gentleman made a very, very important point, and I thank you for making it. When we talk about, well, let's keep it down there, please. When we talk about the sacrifice of veterans, we often forget about the sacrifice of veterans' families. All right? So right now in this country, there are hundreds of thousands of people, often women, who are taking care of wounded veterans. There is a program that we got passed a few years ago called the Caregivers Program. And what that says is we are going to provide support to those people, mostly, not always, women. We're going to give them some little bit of financial help. We're going to provide some other care coming into the house so they can get away. Okay, and we want to expand that to every generation of veterans, to give support to those caregivers who are now taking care of our nation's heroes. Okay? Okay, last question. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Bernie. Could you please share with us your thoughts about the balanced budget amendment and the potential bait and switch with Social Security?
Yeah, I am not in favor of the so-called balanced budget amendment. What that would do is result in massive cuts to every program that is important to working families. We need to go to a balanced budget. We need to deal with the deficit. But the way you do that is not to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. It's to ask the people on top to start paying their fair share of taxes. That's the way you do it. All right.
I wish you would all join me in thanking Senator Sanders for coming tonight. The Senator has been a strong advocate, as I said earlier, of seniors and veterans, but he hasn't forgotten children and other things that are important to all of us in this room. And in closing, I'd like to thank the kitchen staff again, which are mostly from the St. Albans Senior Center, and Denny Getty for putting this together for us. And I hope you all have a safe trip home. So thank you, Bernie.
Thank you all.